I don't know where to begin this. I'm just going to pick a random spot and jump right on in and do it. Um, so, I belonged to a very strange community in Washington, D.C., and I spent a lot of years being fooled by fanfare and pageantry and believing that what looked attractive was attractive, sort of like picking fruit. If it looked good, it was good. And so I sort of had that psychology, and it bled over into my personal life. So, being an artist, an actor, and being engaged in the fine arts and all things beautiful, attractive, desirable, magnetic, I took a bite and got involved. And the contradictions that I couldn't reconcile in my mind kept me very unnerved and off balance. I would stick toes into the pool, but I wouldn't submerge myself because a lot of it, due to Roman Catholic upbringing, which is another story in itself entirely, kept me from overindulging and getting myself in over my head. That all changed when I hitchhiked from Miami to Los Angeles. I had a decadent music teacher here in the District of Columbia, and he was what I would call a planet. He wasn't a star, but he was somewhere up in the ether, in the heavens, in the universe, with respect to notoriety and things like that. He had performed in a lot of Broadway musicals and had done recordings on vinyl and was well respected in the community. And from what I remember him telling me, his gardener's son had strangled him, and it damaged his vocal cords to the point where his doctor said he would never be able to speak again. But not only was he speaking, but he was actually singing, but it was very raspy. He would talk like this, and he would say, okay, do your note in the key of E, and then he would play the piano and we would do our scales. And he taught me the bella cantori, I believe it's pronounced in Italian, bel canto for short. And I learned how to sing using my diaphragm and learn the psychology behind it, where a baby could cry for hours, and it was because at certain ages adults stopped using their diaphragm. So he and I fostered a relationship, and I would take his wife, his vehicle in the afternoons after class. I was in college at the time, so it was in the late 70s, early 80s, and I was going to college. I went to several colleges at the time. I started off at Catholic University at the Harkey Theater and the Summer Theater Workshop program with about 30 girls. And that's how I spent my graduation summer in 1975. I was one of the only guys, if not the only guy, in a summer theater workshop program at Catholic University. And I got to meet all the ladies, and we were good friends, and we had to hang out. I had a brief affair with one who all we did was pretty much make out. We never really got seriously sexual or anything like that, but that's the way I was back then. I wasn't really a sexual kind of guy as much as a friendly kind of guy. Decent women had raised me, so I spent most of my time around decent women, and I had a babysitter, and I slept with her, and I slept with my mom, and so it was never beyond a certain level of intimacy with me and ladies because of the fact that I was very comfortable around them. They were very nice and very friendly and very comfortable, and a lot of them were, they gave me a sense of safety and security and warmth, friendship without any hitches or obligations or violations. And so I maintained that relationship with ladies well into adulthood. I never really was a predator. I was more a confidant. And so I was a confidant to my vocal teacher's wife. And I would go pick her up from work and drive her home and then drive him home. And then or bring him back the car, actually. And so living in D.C., he became disenchanted with the whole scene here. He was fooled into believing there was some sort of cohesive unity between people of ethnicity. And we do have like the Chinatown and certain Latin quarters and things like that, but the rest of it was all just superficial. And so he became disenchanted, and he had a house in Florida that was unkempt, and he wanted to go home, and he was in his 60s by this time, and very few people were interested in helping him get back home. So I volunteered my services because I was pretty laissez-faire. My mom had worked her way up in the middle class workforce, and we were living in a house now. I had my own bedroom, she had her own bedroom, my older brother had his own bedroom, and I was sole proprietor of a storefront sign and window company where I did storefront signs and windows in the more prestigious part of DC known as Georgetown. And it was like every other block, every 2 blocks, every 3 blocks, you would see my storefront signs and windows. But I was pretty irresponsible with the business because I would do only enough to make some money, and then I would kick back, spend that money, go out, have a good time, social butterfly the clubs like Tramps, Scandals, Club Med, the Bank, the Fifth Column, Rumors, Zanzibar, places like that. I actually designed the interior and put together the entire interior of Club Med by myself, and I had storefront signs and windows for places like Bistro Francais, Georgetown Tobacco, Tandoor Chain, Maharaja Inn, Scandia Room, Kathmandu on Connecticut Avenue, at Florida Avenue. All my signage that I had done. I had helped design the interior and do some framing for Clyde's and the Bistro and Au Pied du Cochon and other places like that. I knew most of the owners. I knew most of the businesses like Moda, Ultimoda, and different businesses within Georgetown. I used to do signs for their sales and help do like window displays and things like that. And it's quite lucrative at the time. And at the same time, I was getting carte blanche walking past lines to get into clubs, and started waitering at Mr. Smith's, and um, I was pretty much very well known in Georgetown. Michael O'Hara of the Tramps and Scandals clubs, and the Champions, and places like that. So I could sell my talents in a myriad of artistic ways because I had gotten into production work, and I was doing stage production, and I learned about microphones, and even as a teen I was doing the carbon rod follow spots at auditoriums, and I knew how to set up movie projectors and things like that. So I had I had amassed a large education in the performing, theatrical, and production arts, not to mention fine arts and things like that. So at any given time, I could represent myself to different proprietors or owners or businesses and get work. So I helped this vocal teacher since no one would help him, and I was owning and operating my own business. I didn't really need to work because I was living at home. I helped him pack up his entire household and move back down to Miami, Florida. Drove 22 some hundred odd miles, and his wife paid me back by throwing me out in the street after 2 weeks. And he was still up here working, so he had no way of intervening, and his son became pretty hostile to me because his mom didn't want me staying in the house anymore because I had a little bit of a problem getting work, and I was using the car. I was out all night, but I was actually starting to perform in clubs on Miami Beach as a singer because he had taught me to sing. And so it was just a matter of time before I was successful in bringing in the money, but I guess that was a little bit too long for his wife, who basically lied. And so, not wanting to stay someplace where I didn't belong, I decided, well, what am I going to do? I had an argument with him over the phone, and he asked me what did I want him to do, and I said, well, you're the man of the house. Do what men of the house do. And that didn't work. So I ended up getting a breakfast counter waiter's job at the Fontainebleau Hilton down on the beach, and worked there for several weeks and amassed a couple of $100, and decided, what the heck, if I'm in the street in Miami, why not be in the street in LA? If I get work in LA, because I'm an actor and a performing artist, and I'm looking to do TV, movie, and film anyway, so why not go to LA? So I met a guy while I was a waiter at the Fontainebleau Hilton. He let me sleep in the back of his car, and that moved into him letting me sleep on his sofa. And then before I moved out, I gave him my amp and my turntable, and he told me, it's time for you to go. You've been here long enough. So I got on the road. I made a little sign, and I found the next major city in Florida, and I put that name on the sign and got on the road with a backpack and hitchhiked my way across the United States. I went up to Panama City, across there into Texas, and ended up in LA. And I met some really nice people. I met a lady who was moving, and she had a car full of stuff, and she gave me a ride all the way up Florida toward the Panhandle. And then once in the Panhandle, she dropped me off. I got a ride from someone and dropped off in Louisiana, and it was at night. And so I decided, well, since it's at night and there's nothing really to see, I'll just keep on going instead of taking a rest. Because during those times, I would fall asleep in the car while the people drove, and they were very considerate of me. Some people took me to dinner. One guy let me sleep over his house, but I think he had other intentions, because at night he got up and went to the bathroom with no clothes on. And that didn't go over well with me because, again, I wasn't really a hedonist, and I wasn't really into any kind of lifestyle at that time. I hadn't even had an intimate relationship with a girlfriend, I don't think. And I was in my early 20s. So I got a ride from a fella, and he said, I'm going to give you a ride, but whatever you do, don't go down south toward El Paso, Texas. Stay up toward the north. So I got a ride in Louisiana in the middle of the night, and I was burnt out because it took me some time, about 3 hours. And I woke up with the sun absolutely blinding me, and lo and behold, I was in El Paso, Texas, on some kind of hydraulic dam or something near a Native American, Indigenous American reservation. So that's where I got dropped off. And I remember the guy's words ringing in my ears: "Do whatever you do, don't end up in El Paso, because you'll never get out. The only people there are the people that live there." So that was pretty hilarious. But lo and behold, thank God, being in El Paso, I put my little sign up, and it said, I'm going to LA. And so what ended up happening is that this crippled elderly gentleman, real dark skin, don't know exactly where he was from, can't remember. His name was Louis. He pulls up in a Fleetwood Cadillac 4-door, black, and he says, "You're going into LA?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "I will give you a ride. I'm going all the way." And I was like, "Oh, really? Now that's pretty awesome." And so here it is, me and Louis in this Cadillac Fleetwood driving into LA. And he asked me, he said, "Do you know how to drive?" And I said, "Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, I come from a family of drivers, and I drive very well." And so he said, "Well, drive, but you can't go over 55 miles an hour." And we were in places where the speed limit was like out in Arizona and places like that, the speed limit is really, really high. I can't remember, some places like 70 miles an hour, legally. But Louis said, no, don't go over 55 miles an hour. So from El Paso, Texas into LA, man, I was driving this Fleetwood Cadillac, and couldn't go faster than 55 miles an hour. I mean, I was true to my word. I didn't go over 55 miles an hour. And it's funny because of the fact that we got a flat twice. And the first time we got a flat, the guy, like, he faked fixing the car. And so, or fixing the tire. And so what ended up happening is that we were riding around with a spare that wasn't. And so my first experience was that we got a flat. I put the tire on for him, and when I pulled it out, it was flat. So I actually had to hitchhike with the tire to a gas station, okay? Have the guy repair the tire, then hitchhike back with the tire in tow and put it on the car, and then drive to the gas station and get the flat fixed. Well, what was cool about that was there was this gentleman who picked me up, and he was awesome. I mean, he said, "I tell you what, I will give you a ride to the gas station, and then I will wait for you to get the tire fixed, and I will give you a ride back to the car." And he did exactly that. And I mean, it happened so fast. It was almost as fast as meeting Louis. That I got out on the road with the tire and started. I stood in front of the tire. It was obvious what was up, and I stood in front of I stood out on the road with the tire, and ended up hitchhiking to the gas station with it. And he put me in the back of his little pickup with the tire, and I sat up in the pickup with the wind blowing in my hair, and got back to the car, and we talked a little bit, and I thanked him and put the tire on the car, then drove the car to the gas station, got the other tire fixed. Louis had given me the money to get the tire fixed, said it wouldn't cost more than $10, and I forgot, I think it was $5 to fix it. They plugged it. So we drove back to the gas station with the other tire. They fixed that one, and we were off. We were back on the road. And at midnight in 1981, I ended up on Skid Row in LA, and that's where Louis and I parted ways. And he dropped me off, and I spent the entire night on Skid Row in LA. I was looking at hotels and motels and people out on the street. There was a lot of stuff going on. It just so happens that my vocal teacher's wife was my ballet teacher. I'd studied ballet and modern dance and did quite a number of shows in upstate New York and in Washington, D.C. and various places like that. We were on, we did Christmas shows every year for PBS. So I was a dancer too. I was modern, jazz, and ballet. Never got into tap. But one of my fellow dancers was living in LA with her brother. So I stayed with them for a little while until they got tired of me, and I started living in this, I forgot the year, it was like a 1945 Dodge or something, in the basement, and I would sleep in the back of that and go out and try to find work during the day until the landlord got tired and one day came and knocked on the window. And I mean, this thing was dusty. You could barely see through the windows. And it was off of Wilshire Boulevard in Mariposa, in someplace in the middle of LA. And that's where I lived when I first got to LA after getting off Skid Row, because I wanted to find out where the studios were, because I had this whole Rock Hudson, Gene Harlow, Cary Grant mindset of Hollywood, where you could go in the studio, talk to directors, do auditions, and get work. And it wasn't like that at all. Most production work was being done around the world and around the country, and only studio work was being done in LA. So it was really hard getting in studios. So I ended up running into this kid on the street. He's now a really well-known actor. I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to like have any disparaging incidences, situations, circumstances by these vicious, feral people befall him. And at the same time, he hasn't put his story out there, not like this. So I'm not going to get into it, and I'm not trying to leapfrog off of him into fame and fortune anyway. I'm very comfortable with the life that I'm living right now, and I'm not looking to be a star. LA has gotten really vile and pernicious lately too. So with the profanity of children and turning children's stories into adult stories, having the children laugh at stuff they don't even know, you know. And so, but I ran into this guy, and he and I were living in the streets of LA. I mean, we were homeless in LA. It was just like the old days when there's so many stories of people sleeping in the car, sleeping on the street before they made it. And our story was no different. And I ended up wandering around the streets of LA, and I walked into this garage. I'm not lying. I walked into this garage in the middle of the night down by Santa Monica Beach after sleeping on the beach and sand fleas eating the living bejesus out of me. I woke up and it was cold at night, and I was like, this is LA. It's not supposed to be cold. So I walked around, and all the garages had gates on them or doors or stuff like that for like apartment complexes. And I found this one, and it was open, and I swear to you, this is no lie. I saw a brand new dry cleaned blanket in the dry cleaning wrap laid down on the ground in the middle of the night. It was like 2 a.m. And I said, you've got to be kidding me. And I didn't consider myself a thief or anything. I just saw the blanket and I thought it was like a godsend. So I got the blanket and I wrapped up in it. And that's when I got ate by the sand fleas, actually, after I wrapped up in that blanket and slept on Santa Monica Beach on this bluff overlooking the beach. And I woke up and I had wrapped myself up in the blanket and the plastic. And I mean, I slept cushy, and when I woke up, the sun was like baking me, and I was like a puddle of water, and I had these big welts on me from the sand fleas. So I said, I've got to get indoors. So I started looking around, and there was this building I found on Wilshire Boulevard that had like 3 or 4 garages downstairs, and it had like this big tent-sized industrial grass catcher that I would curl up behind and go to sleep at. And I had like a knapsack with actually a duffel bag, because I had found a job and started buying clothes. I worked for this caterer. This guy lived with his girlfriend. I can't remember his name, but then I suffered with exacerbated permanent partial disability from a near-fatal head blow. And so I can't remember his name, but I can see his face. It was like, I think it was Dave. And Dave lived with his girlfriend, and he was very ingenious. He didn't work pretty much. He just stayed home and ran his business, which was a catering business. And what it was that all these offices on Wilshire Boulevard, these towering office buildings, they allowed for him to come in there and sell sandwiches to the offices that had condoned it to their employees for lunch, so they didn't have to go out. And he had developed a reputation. And he put his advert in the back of one of those free newspapers that you get out of the boxes on the street corners. We just lift up the lid, pull the newspaper out, and it was like LA Times or something like that. And but not the newspaper. It was like a free circulator. and Dave had his advert in the back looking for employees. So I went and I interviewed in his apartment, and this guy would buy like a whole chicken, barbecue it, roast it and barbecue it, and buy a bag of sub rolls, which was like $1, $2, something like that. And he would put together barbecue chicken sandwiches, and I'm telling you, it was good. I mean, the food was good. It wasn't just like thrown together. It was really, he had put paprika and pepper and stuff like that in it, and a little bit of lettuce and stuff. And I would go out with 6 or 7 sandwiches, and we would sell the sandwiches. And I forget what we were charging for, like $5, $5 a piece or something like that. And we took apples, and he would make chocolate chip cookies, and put them like three to a shrink wrap little bag, and charge like $2-3 for those, and like we had these little boxed juices and boxed milk, and he took this, like the shopping baskets, the two-wheeled shopping baskets that fold open, and he took the wire frame part off, and he used the wheels and the handle frame on coolers. And so I would come to his house at like 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning, and I would get this jerry-rigged cooler on wheels with the chicken sandwiches, apples, bananas, the cookies, and the juice boxes. And this is how we went to work. We went to work at these office buildings that most of the office buildings you had to go past security downstairs to even get to the elevators. And so I remember, like, vaguely my first day, I told, the security guard saw me coming in, and he's like, "You with Dave?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm with Dave." He says, "Okay, these are the floors you can go to, and these are the floors that you don't go to." And so I ended up doing that for months and making good money. And I got paid at the end of every day. Then I got a bonus pay at the end of the week. And on Saturday and Sunday, I had off. And so I was making money. I was cleaning my clothes. I was going to video game arcades. I was talking to people. I was meeting people. And I ended up making a friend who lived down in Santa Ana named Marino Divo from Italy, from Trieste, Italy. And he worked on the Italian Princess before it was the Love Boat. He was a tableside waiter, the ones that set the pans on fire.